Manchester United 2, Crystal Palace 1. A bit of a slow start for Manchester United, but once the team got going, I thought we were the far better team, and importantly, we get 3 points and climb into third place. So the 3 points are absolutely brilliant for Manchester United. It is exactly what we needed from this game to climb into the top 3. However, as I said in the intro, the performance didn't start particularly well, and that was because throughout probably the first 25 minutes, I thought Manchester United were easy to play against, on the ball and off the ball. We did not start the game particularly well. Let's start off with United defensively, where we were a bit too easy to play against. We know under Michael Carrick, we're not the most intense team when we're in the high press. That means if we're not going to be intense there, then we need to be compact when we drop into our mid block, and I just didn't think that Manchester United were. You can see here United are in a very compact 4-4-2, and what we're trying to stop is central progression into the 2 Crystal Palace midfielders, which makes a lot of sense. Someone like Adam Wharton can run a game, and his passing quality can really hurt you, so it makes sense to restrict that pass into there. The problem was though, it made it so easy for Crystal Palace to move the ball out wide to the wing-back. I mean, look how much space the wing-back has here, and also here. Just so much space outside the Manchester United structure. Now, of course, from this position, Palace can't necessarily create a direct threat at our goal, but you're simply giving them a way into the game. Every time they build from the back, you're allowing them to move all the way into the Manchester United half, which makes control for United very difficult to achieve, because Palace always have this moment where they can bring the ball forward. And they were generally dangerous throughout the first 20 minutes, moving particularly from this wide position, then diagonally in behind Manchester United. You see, our fullbacks were sort of hesitant to jump and apply pressure, knowing that there was that room in behind. So we were sort of standoffish, and I thought for 25 minutes, United were really easy to play against defensively, and there seemed to be a miscommunication in the United performance. We didn't quite know who was meant to go when, who was meant to be jumping to apply pressure, who was meant to be dropping off behind. There were moments where 2 players would be marking 1 player. It was all a little bit messy defensively to start off with. Now, the start to this video probably doesn't really sound like I'm talking about a Manchester United win, because the next part is also slightly negative, and that is because early on in the game, United just weren't very good. We didn't have a good first 30 minutes. I thought we were very sloppy. Our details as players individually were poor. Far too many situations where we were giving the ball away. And I think the tempo control was off. Casemiro was arguably too direct, whilst Kobbie Mainoo was far too safe. And the fullbacks, Dalot in particular, had an absolutely horrendous first half of football in this game. However, tactically I still thought there were moments where United could hurt Palace. And that's because we quite clearly outnumbered Palace on that first line. United built possession with more of a back four in this game as opposed to a back three. And that allowed us to find space out wide. Look how much room Diogo Dalot has here, but also here. There was clearly space on the right side of Crystal Palace. And this is why the start was so annoying, because I thought tactically, in terms of shapes, I thought this was quite a nice matchup for United. I thought there were a few obvious areas where we could hurt Palace. The problem was the player quality was lacking, so we find that space on the right hand side, we carry the ball forward, and Mbeumo pins these Palace players deeper, but Dalot just didn't give us the quality, and the players, I don't know, again, didn't look synergised. We didn't look cohesive with what we were doing. The distances between the players often felt quite big, and we were really struggling to connect. And then as we got further forward into the final third, at times we had the opposite problem, where our players were almost too close, and there was a real imbalance in the play. And that imbalance comes because Dalot wants to move forward down the right, which is absolutely fine. As that happens, Mbeumo moves in. And actually, I think when Mbeumo moved inside, he was really dangerous in both the first half and the second half. I enjoyed that dynamic, as Dalot would arrive around the right-hand side and Mbeumo would come inside onto his left. I thought that was one of our most dangerous sort of themes in this game. The problem was the rest of the attack just didn't quite work, because Cunha from the left was coming really narrow in the first half, and Mazraoui was doing the same. So when it comes to breaking the team down, we didn't stretch Palace enough. We didn't ask them enough questions. Our players were sort of too far away from each other at times to connect with each other. We didn't really have runs in behind during this phase of the game. And also we couldn't really go out wide because we were too predictable. So it wasn't a great start, but fortunately Michael Carrick changed something, and from that point, United were brilliant. Now, before we get to the tactical change, I would just like to take a moment to ask you guys if you could please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 95,000 subscribers, and I need your help. So if you do enjoy the content, leave a like on the video, and if you could subscribe as well, please, that would be really appreciated. So Carrick's change at half-time, what was it? Well, it wasn't personnel. The 11 stayed the same, apart from the early change for Mazraoui for Luke Shaw. But what I really enjoyed was that Michael Carrick saw something that didn't work in the first half. We had absolutely no width in the first half down the left-hand side. Look at this screenshot here. Literally nothing early release down the left. Again here, nothing down the left-hand side. One more, nothing down the left-hand side. What I love is that Carrick found a solution. It would have been very easy to say we simply don't have the squad for it. We don't have any left wingers. Cunha wants to be inside, Bruno wants to be inside. So it would have been easy to say we don't have the players for it, so tough luck, we just got to deal with it. What I love though is that Carrick found solutions. He found a solution to this problem. One of those solutions was to ask Cunha to play much wider on the left-hand side in the second half. You can see it here. Cunha picking up touches on the left. And the second you do this, Cunha can take people on. Here, he really commits the defender and does really, really well to get the ball forward. And the second you do that, you're stretching Palace differently. Previously, we were too narrow, we were too central, too many players too close to each other, and these Palace defenders can really close off and be difficult to play against. The second we sort of start stretching the pitch, Cunha wide on the left, Dalot wide on the right, these Palace defenders just have to split up a little bit. Those distances increase, and then you can get more people off the ball. But I think the other thing we did really, really well was our usage of Bruno Fernandes. And Bruno deserves a lot of credit, because Bruno should be the main man at this club. He deserves to be the heartbeat of the team, the one playing just behind the striker, sliding balls in all day long. But what we needed from him in this game was a balance with Cunha. Because Cunha, as much as he started to play here more, he still wants to come inside. But there were several moments where Bruno Fernandes, here and here, would go and play wide as a left winger. And I thought this was really, really important for Manchester United's performance. This is why I think everything changed in the second half, because suddenly Palace have got multiple threats that they've got to try and deal with. So Carrick deserves a lot of credit for this change, but so do the United players for adapting. The other thing that we now did though was got our players wide on the left a little bit closer to each other. So rather than the left previously having literally no one, like here, suddenly now in the second half there's loads of players really close to each other. Kobbie Mainoo was now tasked with getting much closer. Now, I don't think Kobbie had a particularly good game. I don't think he did enough in his performance, but that happens sometimes. You have a drop-off. But what was important was now, rather than completely ignoring the left-hand side, we were actually using it as a weapon to attack. When we win the penalty, it's Bruno playing on the left, providing the ball for Cunha. Now, granted, that was the second phase of a set piece, so it's a little bit different, but it was good to see us now trying to threaten down that side of the pitch. And again, here, we've got players close on the left, so they can combine and try and find a way through. And I think just this added threat gave Crystal Palace much more problems to try and solve. Of course, eventually they go down to 10 men and are forced to adjust, and you're just sort of starting to pile the pressure on those defenders. Now, the other big change that we saw in the second half, which really swung the momentum of this game, was Carrick clearly gave these players a bit of a rocket at halftime. He told them, basically, you got to step up. The performance hasn't been good enough. Second half, even before the red card, United played with much more intensity. We were much sharper in our approach trying to move the ball forward. Suddenly there was a bit of zip to the way that we were trying to play. We're trying to fire the ball through the lines. Of course, we've seen a greater balance to the team now with the threat down the left-hand side, as well as through the middle and as well as down the right. So immediately United looked better. The other thing that I enjoyed though was as we got towards the final third, our players again were just a little bit closer where they could combine. Now, I'm not talking about players literally on top of each other like this, because that would have made the pitch too compact. We were still stretching the pitch with players out wide, but the players in central areas were allowed now to try and play a little bit closer to each other and were allowed to combine. And I think Casemiro had a fantastic second half. First half, I felt that his passes, were risky, as they often are with Casemiro, but he wasn't always completing them. He wasn't always able to get the pass off, and that made it look a little bit chaotic. In the second half, I think Casemiro found his quality. I think his sharpness of passing was fantastic, trying to move that ball through the lines. You can see here, Casemiro fires that ball through, and again here, firing that ball in the middle of the pitch. And that's what you need. When you do that, you force the opposition to react defensively. You sort of force them to have some sort of response to what you're doing. So when Casemiro fires this ball through, as Sesko comes towards the ball, this defender has to do something. He has to make a decision. Now, that decision can be to stand off and let Sesko have the ball. There you risk a shot. Or it might be to get really tight, but then the ball can be played around the corner. But the important thing is not what decision the centre-back actually makes, but the fact that you're forcing him to do something. In the first half, United were too easy to play against. It was too safe. Not enough players taking responsibility. It was too easy for the Palace defenders. In the second half, we started to ask much more questions. And Bruno, like I said, was really given this free roam at moments on the left wing, other times in the middle of the pitch. But the second you get Bruno close to these guys in the middle, you can start to combine. And there was just much more intent from United to play through the middle. So suddenly, there was more balance. In the first half, it was Mbumo and Dallo down the right. In the second half, we also had threat down the left. We were progressing through the middle. And now we're asking Palace more questions. Suddenly, we are far less predictable. Palace don't know where we're going to attack them from. And that's why Manchester United were, for the first 20 minutes of the second half, really able to build some momentum and really get going and really get on top in this game. And I think during that spell, United could have scored 3 or 4 goals, to be honest. I think we could have put the game to bed in that spell. Of course, the second goal itself comes from something that we mentioned in our tactical preview, which was quite a nice moment, to be honest. Something we spoke about in our preview was that at times when you play against a back 5, there is space in this zone here, and this zone over here. I said it's an area where Dallo got an assist from quite recently. Today it was Bruno Fernandes. When isn't it? Just moments before the goal, I said to my brother, anytime Old Trafford has roared in the past 6 years, Bruno's just close to it because we'd had a couple of attacks just before this. And then Bruno finds the ball in that exact space that we're talking about. And the delivery into the box is absolutely fantastic. And when you've got a striker like Benjamin Sesko, who occupies centre-backs in the box, whose movement is good, and he attacks the ball well, you've got an opportunity out of nothing. You know, he doesn't need that many touches, Benjamin Sesko. His presence in the box alone is a huge impact, has a huge impact on the way that Palace try and defend. He forces those defenders deeper, and that's what gives Bruno the space initially. And then when Bruno can deliver like that and Sesko can finish like that, then it's just absolutely brilliant to see from Manchester United. I think my only criticism of the second half would be that we didn't really put our foot down and go for it. I think that could have been a game where we scored 3 or 4 goals. Palace were down to 10 men. I think we could have gone after them. From sort of the 70th minute, I thought we took it a little bit slow. We took our foot off the gas and we're trying to control the game, which I understand. I think that's important to do. But I think we could have picked up that tempo again at times and gone for the kill and got that 3rd goal. Ultimately, we didn't. But by just achieving much more balance in the second half, I think Carrick did a very smart thing. You know, that balance in the second half completely changed the game. And United throughout the second half, I think even against 11 men, would have gone on to win that game because we just looked much sharper and much more of a threat. So yeah, overall, I would say Manchester United deserved to win that game. I think for the first 20, maybe 25 minutes, Palace were the better side. Then from that point through to the 70th, United were the better team. Even end of the first half, we were starting to pile the pressure on a little bit, starting to play a little bit better. I think in the second half, we did some clever things by getting our central players closer, but also making sure that we had more width on the pitch as well. Doing those two things at the same time really created a lot more space for United. And then when you've got players like Casemiro and Bruno, who really picked up their performances in the second half when we needed them. We needed that experience, that leadership, that know-how late on in the game. I think those two really got us through that second half and up to the standards, and everyone around them just improved as a consequence. And suddenly United looked very dangerous. So it's great for United. The second half performance I thought was quite good. There's still a lot more that we can do. There's a lot more that we can get better at, and we have to start games faster. But I think United deserved the win, and we did get the win. And we got a huge 3 points, and we're now 3rd in the table, which is just absolutely fantastic. Like, again, the standards are much higher now. Now we win, and we're slightly critical of the way that we won. Whereas previously, you know, we were sat here trying to find a positive in a loss. So this is nice to see for United. This is how it should be. Us winning games week in, week out, finding a way to win no matter what. I would like to see the performances improve, and I hope that comes with time. But right now, Manchester United are finding a way to win. And I do think Carrick did something, I'll say it again, very clever in the second half. He made an impact. He didn't necessarily change his personnel, but he changed the balance on the pitch. So that's a really good thing to see from a young manager. So, once again, for however many weeks in a row now, I'm a happy man, very happy with the result. So we're going to wrap up there. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like and do make sure you subscribe because it really does help the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next one.